to the upper floors with their boutiques complete with convenient cafes. What other store houses its own recording studio? Rare coin collection and exotic toy land. There are many department stores, but there's only one Macy's. As the undisputed media capital of the United States, New York is home base for some of the country's most prestigious publishing houses, newspapers, radio and television networks. At the NBC studios in Rockefeller Center, visitors can tour the darkened sets of popular news programs.
In any television production, there are basically three major areas: lights, sound, and picture. Before we get into it,
they also learn about the complexities of television production through demonstration and a bit of participation.
New York is huge. It's bigger than life.
At the turn of the century, as the need for space increased far beyond its availability, the city began to grow in a new direction, straight up. The construction of the Flatiron Building in 1902 marked the introduction of the city's architectural trademark, the skyscraper. Its 20 stories were quickly dwarfed by the 60-story Woolworth Building and the 71-story Chrysler Building. In 1931, the 102-story Empire State Building took the premier position among the city's towering giants. Named for New York, the Empire State, the building took less than 2 years to complete. It's said that work progressed at such a hectic pace that at times the building rose more than 1 floor a day. The top floor was meant to be a mooring platform for dirigibles, but that plan was abandoned after a near disaster. The building has had its troubles with aircraft.
The Empire State Building, like all New York, was hidden by fog as a Mitchell bomber trying to reach Newark Airport crashed into the tallest structure in the world. 13 died, including the crew members, 2 Army men and a Navy hitchhiker. What happened will never be known, while the flyers in the crash are all dead, and eyewitness accounts vary. One thing is certain: the pilot was off the radio beam. The 79th floor was hardest hit by the crash. Some people thought it was a balloon bomb. Firemen had to drag their hoses 11 stories to reach the flames on the 79th floor, as many elevators were knocked out of order.
Although the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center reached 110 stories in 1972, the Empire State Building still holds a powerful position as a symbol of New York's greatness. The great hotels of New York are also landmarks. Their elegant rooms have welcomed many of the world's rich, famous, and powerful. The Hotel Pennsylvania, now a Best Western hotel, has hosted every president of the United States since 1919. The hotel's public relations director recalls one illustrious visitor.
Well, I remember a visit from President Johnson many years ago. He's very fond of cookies, And he would always ask for a particular kind of chocolate-dipped cookie that he enjoyed to be sent up to the apartment. And on this one occasion, he was going out to lunch to speak in the ballroom downstairs, and as he was leaving, he took a fistful of cookies and put them into his pocket. And from behind him, you could hear a voice saying, "Lyndon, you put those back." And it was Lady Bird Johnson reminding him that he was on a diet.
What's it like for a hotel when a president visits?
It's like any other guest, really. You want to make them as comfortable as possible and provide for their comforts and needs.
Being an island, Manhattan is linked to its neighboring communities by a number of tunnels and bridges, the latter being no less an architectural wonder than the city's most interesting buildings. The first bridge linking Manhattan to Brooklyn was the Brooklyn Bridge. Completed in 1883, the bridge was, for 20 years, the longest suspension bridge in the world. One of the few bridges to have a pedestrian walkway, the Brooklyn Bridge provides one of the most glorious walks in the city. The view of the bridge and the city at night is especially breathtaking. Today, the longest suspension bridge in the world is the Verrazano Narrows Bridge, linking Brooklyn and Staten Island. This magnificent structure, completed in 1964, was named for the Italian navigator who discovered the harbor while searching for a passage to Asia. This elegant bridge is a fitting memorial to his exploration. In the city, the buildings that house great art are often viewed as art themselves. The Guggenheim Museum, designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, remains one of the architect's most controversial works and is called by some the corkscrew or the mushroom. But the grande dame of New York's many museums is the Metropolitan Museum of Art, or simply the Met. Its extensive collections cover the broadest range of periods, styles, and artistic media. From the Egyptian wing with its famed Temple of Dendur to its powerful collection of primitive art spanning over 3,000 years. From the great classical masters to the vibrant impressionists, to the provocative modernists, these are just some of the treasures housed within the walls of the Met. The Metropolitan is, without a doubt, one of the world's great museums. Scores of other museums and galleries make New York City one of the greatest centers of fine art. For performers, there is no audience as tough as a New York audience, and no success as great as a triumph here. In fact, the now popular name, the Big Apple, was originally bestowed in the 20s and 30s by jazz musicians who coined the term as a way of saying they'd made it to the big time. Theatergoers can choose from productions at the 40 or so theaters located in the Theater District around Broadway and 45th Street. While prices for productions in these houses have become quite high, savvy theatergoers often wait in line the day of the show to purchase half-price tickets at the tickets booth in Times Square. These lines may be long and the choice is limited, but the reduced price is usually worth any inconvenience. Few experiences are more exciting than the crush of people, taxis, and limousines arriving at a theater just minutes before curtain time. Less expensive are the productions at more than 350 off-Broadway and off-Broadway theaters. Scattered throughout the city, some productions, like The Fantastics, become as famous as their Broadway counterparts. Longer running than any show and another symbol of New York's theater society is Sardi's Restaurant, a traditional gathering place for actors, writers, and producers. Sardi's is most well known for its caricature of famous performers spanning several decades. The president of the restaurant explains the tradition.
There was a young Russian immigrant named Alex Gard who suggested that he do caricatures of the stars for meals at the time. And from what I understand, Mr. Sardi was not that keen on it, but a few of the major stars on Broadway at that time, I believe Norma Shearer was one of the first, liked the idea. They were good customers, and he put them on the wall. Of course, with caricatures, you have a problem. You know, they tend to exaggerate the prominent features of actors, and actors, being a little on the vain side, didn't always object to it. We insist that all our characters be signed by the actor, and goes on, you know, before it goes on the wall. And we've had a few instances where we've had to ask them to be done again. I have more hair than that. My nose isn't that big.
Broadway lore and legend permeate the restaurant. For example, have you ever wondered about the origin of the show business term, turkey?
And turkey was an expression that referred to a show that would be put up just before Thanksgiving and run through Christmas, because there were so many people in town viewing so many shows, and they would put up this anything between Thanksgiving and New Year's. It's still sort of that way, and people would go see it, and that's where the expression turkey came from. They would always appear around Thanksgiving, these particular shows, and sure enough, they would last right up until New Year's, and then they would disappear forever.
But there is much more to the performing arts than just theater. New York is home to some of the world's greatest orchestras, opera companies, and dance troupes. The famed Lincoln Center at the intersection of Broadway and Columbus Avenue is home to the New York Philharmonic, the New York City Ballet, the New York City Opera, and the Metropolitan Opera, not to mention distinguished touring companies from all over the world. What performer hasn't dreamed of playing Carnegie Hall? And since opening night in December of 1932, the 6,000-seat Radio City Music Hall remains the largest and possibly the best-known indoor theater in America. In truth, all of New York is a theater and every corner a stage. The enthusiasm of the New York sports fan is legendary, and the city's sporting events give them plenty to cheer about. The New York metropolitan area is home to some of the country's biggest professional franchises. There's a sport for every season and every sensibility in the Big Apple.
New York. I like the streets, the people, the music, the trees.